there's something there that scratches me on the wrong way, that we spend so much effort thinking and analyzing that is not necessarily focused on doing something out there in the world, but
Mm-hmm.
it is for positioning as an opponent in a political theater.
Mm-hmm.
And when I listen to some of these videos by people that have a good reputation online, so the pattern is, oh, the other side could be seen from the left or from the right, but the pattern is the same. The other side thinks and does like this.
Mm-hmm.
We should think and do the other way, which is normal because we our governance is fundamentally competitive. Okay, so it generates these tribes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then these tribes, they spend a lot of energy to weaponize language against each other. So there's a lot of talk about the other side. There's a lot of effort and energy going towards dismantling the other side's narrative instead of, hey, let's understand what's going on in the world and try to solve some problems. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Uh,
says the Canadian.
no,
Yeah,
it's more than
easy to
it's more.
say in Montreal, bro.
Here we have exactly the same problem. I mean, whatever you have representative democracy, you have these patterns because
Mm-hmm.
it's representative democracy is fundamentally competitive. Okay, you have to choose a representative. So
Mm-hmm.
they create language, ideologies, logic systems, memes to trap you in, to create a constituency. That's how the system functions. In order to be
Mm-hmm.
elected, you have to create a constituency. And to rally people together, you use psychosocial technologies, right? Ideology, for example. So you provide people something that they could resonate with to lock them into that psychologically and rationally. Okay. And at the same time, what you engineer, okay, is a difference between you and the other, where you are good and the other is bad. No matter from which side you look at it, it's always the same pattern. And that's because this is how governance works. You have to make your followers loyal, election after election. But it's unfortunate because we spend so much energy just crafting language against each other rather than crafting language that represents the world. Because
Yeah, but I
because because
think I'm going to push back a little bit because sometimes what you have is one side doing that more because like in the United States, even if you run like NLP or something on the socials, like you're gonna see that one side uses a lot more dehumanizing language for the other. And if you have one another side that's trying to think more complicated, less black and white thoughts,
yeah,
and this is true in a relationship, in a personal relationship. If you have one person thinking black and white and being like, you're bad and I'm good, and you have the other person trying to see like all the shades of complexity, then in that relationship, who's going to gain the upper hand? It is the person who's the black and white thinker every time. So, I absolutely am in favor of complexity thinking, but you also have to have that social discernment to be like, hey, self-reflection, like it's also a problem if you don't, if there are other people who believe in their cause so strongly and it's such a bad cause like white supremacy and you don't have the same passion for your cause that they do, they win out, and then you have some just really terrible policies like that. The stuff that's going on in the United States is just like really horrific.
yeah. But I'm past that. So it's funny because there's a guy. He's a Jewish guy. He comes to the lab, and we sometimes engage in these more complicated discussions.
Mhm.
you know. And so I was doing my spoiler your vote campaign, and we were discussing around that. And so he was also thinking in terms of political parties, and it is the way it is. But here's the thing. So talking about diversity of opinions, right?
Uh-huh.
We cannot reduce diversity of opinions in society because people are made up in different ways. The problem is when you create institutions, industries, to shape public opinion and to channel public opinion.
Like what? What do you mean?
Yeah. Because that guy was Jewish, I gave him this example. Okay, I'm going to just give you a metaphor example that probably will, and then we can transfer. So Marquis de Sade, had one comment at some point who said something like this. So here we talk about violence, right? Violence as opposed to opinions, violence as a behavior among other behaviors. So he said, you know what? If somebody savagely beats an old woman at the corner of the street just because she was crossing, that's less bad, orders of magnitude less bad than a government that industrializes killing, like the Nazis, for example.
Mm-hmm.
That makes an industry for killing, okay? That makes an institution for mass killing.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea here is that violence will always be part of our society. We can never eliminate it. For different reasons, people will be violent. But that is fine. Let people be violent in their own ways as individuals. The passionate crime, he called it, right? That's part of human nature, the passionate crime. We're not going to condemn passionate crime. What's even worse than that, orders of magnitude.
Mm-hmm.
It's when we create an institution that is able to apply violence on a massive scale. So let's transpose now, okay, people's opinion. Oh, some people have bad opinions, okay? Mm-hmm. According to this philosophy, it's like, that's fine. We can never eliminate that from society. Let them talk. Let them be passionate about the craziest thing, okay? What the problem is when you create an institution like mass media,
mm-hmm.
that shapes public opinion on a massive scale. And then you have 2 or 3 versions of this that then affront each other. Okay, so instead of having a bunch of individuals with their crazy ideas and good ideas and forming like almost like a gas where molecules go at different speeds in all directions,
mm-hmm.
they finally cancel each other. And whatever damage you can do by being an extreme far-right crazy wacko, okay, even beating savagely, I don't know, a black person, let's say, at the corner of the street. On the scale of global society, that's nothing compared to monopolization of mass media, monopolization of education and academia in order to forge and weaponize ideologies and try to feed massive amounts of people into one ideological block or another and pitch them at each other.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? So my peer-to-peerness in me says,
mm-hmm.
all right, that's fine. They're crazy. Okay, let them talk, let them scream, let them, you know what I'm saying? So we don't create platforms for them, but it's not good to create platforms for anything that is designed to shape people's opinions on a massive scale. You see what I'm saying? So that's freedom of thought. That's peer-to-peer. That's totally freedom of thought. You see, because we're not biasing. and people go to school, people do PhDs, people, you know what I'm saying? It's all that engineering that you're talking about. It's the terms that they use, the framing that they do, there's people, the think tanks. That's the effort. That's the institution. That's the Nazi killing machine. If you look at it from that metaphor perspective, and you say, well, it's done for good. Okay, Nazis thought that they're going to revolutionize the world and bring a new light into the world and create the Third Reich and bring, I don't know, create a Superman. They thought it's good. So who are we to say it's good or it's bad? I think the problem is to create the means. You know what I'm saying? In the first place.
So what are you saying?
Well, I'm saying that we need to maybe abolish this governance and move towards a different type of governance that is not inherently competitive, So then the incentive of creating these machines of shaping people's opinion, instead of having these incentives to spend time and energy to find ways to lock people into a way of thinking, if these incentives are not there and we go to direct democracy, okay,
yeah, but what I'm saying, though, TV, is that in order to move towards that non-competitive thing, you have to have thought leadership that shows the way, that can actually think about that. And it's important to have people actually do the thinking in that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's important. But then creating platforms and integrating platforms, that's going way too far. Because what we don't realize.
Well, what are you talking about, though? I'm just don't what platforms? What are you saying? I'm not even disagreeing with you. I'm just trying to understand, understand the argument.
Yeah. So by creating platforms, what I mean, and integrating platforms, what I mean is that you have industries like the media, for example, that at some point can be seized by some interest groups. And then that machine of communication, that industry, the whole industry, right? Or a big portion of it could be tweaked in that sense. And then you have academia through the financial incentives and blah, blah, blah. You can also bias that and tweak it towards a way of thinking. And then you can integrate these things together through other types of institutions, think tanks, NGOs, whatever. Okay. So then you have the social institutional apparatus that becomes that industrial scale machine for shaping people's opinions. And it's deliberately so. That's the problem, is that now you can engineer people's opinions on a massive scale.
Oh, for sure.
Instead of giving people the freedom to form opinions, it doesn't matter how crazy it is. That passionate crime, it's insignificant compared to what possibly could go wrong by institutionalizing opinion shaping. You see what I'm saying? And then you have your leaders, fine, but they're not using society's institutional framework to do any of that. Okay, people go and they have an influence on social media, or they become teachers and they walk around from village to village like Jesus used to do. That's okay if you believe Jesus existed. What I'm trying to say is that whatever means are human scale, it's fine because society needs mechanisms of change. So somewhere down at the grassroots, we need to have heads pop up and propose new ideas and start influencing other people. But that's individual influence. That's like a lady putting lipsticks and going out. It's that kind of influence. We can never take that away, or the guy that goes to the gym to put on muscles because he wants to control the image and how people respond to his presence. That kind of influence is fine. It's individual, but so there is a step here from being a leader, being an individual, using individual human-sized means to kind of shape behavior around you and shape thought around you. That's okay. The problem is when you create an industry for doing that. That becomes non-human, and you know what I'm saying? It just becomes a machine that it's Frankenstein. You know what I'm saying? You're creating, you can create a monster. That's what Sade was talking about. When he was critical of society back then, he saw that institutions have this amplifying power that can go out of control and move nations from one side to another. And he was finding freedom in expressing whatever you want to express. So for him, violence was not inherently bad, was a form of expression, right? Well, now if you dive deeper into his philosophy, you're gonna find some crazy shit. But that's the whole point. Is okay. Let's take it for. Let's accept that there are always going to be violent people in society. There are always going to be crazy people in society putting out ideas that are preposterous, right? Let's accept that as a given of human nature and live with it. But where do we draw the line between that kind of individual influence and industrializing, opinion shaping?
You see,
So I think this is what
You're
happens
saying-
in our societies.
So you're saying
not
we
only-
shouldn't take over the world? Is that?
Sorry?
Not that. As I suggested to do think tank, because Tibi is not only talking, conceptualizing it or talking about it, he's actually doing it. So take a look at his posts on X Twitter, or Shitter, as I call it. More spoil your votes posters distributed in downtown Montreal. Join the referendum. So here you go.
So what I'm trying to say is that maybe we're at the end of representative democracy. We need to hack the voting system, turn it into a referendum of trust in government, about trust in government. And then, hey, if you have a big number of people that spoil their votes, which are counted, then you know what? We may have a constitutional crisis and a national debate, and realize that representative democracy is actually not good. I mean, it has served us for a while, but now we have the technology to go beyond that, like direct democracy or liquid democracy or some other type of things. So maybe we're at the end of an era, and as much as it served us in the past, it has been totally taken over, hijacked by this. It's like we refined our tools to shape people's opinion. Before you had like posters, flyers, people going door to door, people go on the soapbox in the middle of the piazza and talking about their ideas. Well, now you have a team of people behind computers influencing millions around them. So you see how technology has catch up with this system, and the system is untenable anymore. And now what it does is that these tools have been so sharpened, so perfected, that essentially you have two tribes affronting each other and killing each other, and you spend so much energy into inner wars, intellectual wars or ideological wars, rather than moving forward. So I think overall, the representative democracy has created some effects that are pulling us back rather than thrusting us forward. So what I'm proposing is, let's see how many people think that this governance doesn't work. Okay, why don't we spoil our votes? Because we have an election now, right? Why don't we spoil our votes? So I go around town and just put these posters around, hoping that people are just gonna see an alternative, rather than just, hey, you can only vote for that guy or the other woman, whatever. Okay, no, you know what? We have another alternative. Let's spoil our votes, and that's counted, so we know how many we are.
So
and now everybody knows how many we are, and maybe we discover that the emperor is naked.
But what is vote spoiling?
It's taking your ballot and just instead of checking in the box for your favorite candidate, you put whatever. You put a big heart on it. You put a big cross on it. You spoil it. It means that you don't follow the proper rules of checking your choice. And these votes are counted after every election. We know exactly how many people have voted for every candidate, plus how many votes have been spoiled, meaning not counted. Okay. And there's always a percentage of people that don't know the rules. So let's say they check for their candidate and then they put a little heart on the side. Well, that's a spoiled vote. Okay. So there's always below 1% of spoiled votes by just stupidity or whatever, what if we get to 15% of spoiled votes? What happened? Well, there was a crazy guy doing a campaign and some people caught onto it, and that's a statistically significant spike, which may be due to that. So it's a vote of non-confidence, right?
Okay.
So it's a mechanism. It's like, how do you hack a vote? How do you hack an election and turn it into a referendum without spending a dime? Fundamentally, it is a referendum because these things are counted by the system. Yeah,
Tibi, I actually have been doing this for ages here in Brazil, in various ways, right? Because I don't validate. I don't validate the actual nation-state government system.
So, but most people they just don't show up. Spoiling your vote is a conscious. It's you're doing it, so you're purposefully doing it.
But that said, in the actual momentum that the world stage encounters itself, with Trump craziness. It has a spike on nationalism on Canada. So people just want to vote now, just to see if their premier is going to be able to counter the tariffs attacks coming from the trade war.
Yeah,
right?
The Americans are pulling back on that, but the Canadian election became a campaign for all parties. There's just one candidate that they don't even show him on TV. That is a bit, ideologically is trapped into that right mentality, libertarian type of thing. But the Canadian election, instead of being about Canadians, it's about Trump. It's so crazy.
That's what I'm trying to say. So what is spiking the Canadian to go to vote for whatever premier or prime minister is going to be, head of Canada is a tariff trade war. Is this nationalist sentiment like, we want to, hey, we're not going to become the 51 states, of the United States, something like that, right? And that's why I find it very delightful and interesting, the move that you're doing, but the tension of the medium citizenry of Canada is captured by this, is captured and locked in with this tariff trade war with United States, right? With Trump. That's why.
Yeah. But also the election is also carefully done. I mean, it's always this is the most important election. Vote for X or Y, and they don't give you the other choice. Which is you can always legally spoil your vote and are counted. And I know the system doesn't like it because I Twitter at some point they told me that I'm disturbing by repeating posts, and that's probably okay. But TikTok actually gave me a message saying that my video post will not propagate. People can still have access to it, but it doesn't propagate algorithmically. Okay, it doesn't show up in people's streams because I violated the rules, which are disseminating false information. There's nothing false about that. It's all true. You can spoil a vote legally, and it's counted. There's no lie in that. So they shadow banned my video on a wrong reason. Somewhere, the power in place, they know that this is an exit that is possible for people to say, I don't want to engage in this. I engage in my own way, not as you tell me to do. So it is an exit. They probably didn't think about that when they created the laws, but it is an exit. And they don't want people to see it. It's the most important election. It's that guy or the other guy.
You might be giving them too much credit.
Well, if they didn't come up with a good reason, so I thought, it's totally motivated. And
I think it's more likely that they just don't have enough employees to do any kind of quality checking, and they just have some crappy AI just randomly pulling things down. That's just my personal opinion. I don't think any human is like, this one, like, is threatening to the powers that be. Like, I don't think they give a shit.
Well, there's another mechanism too. Okay, so there's the two things that you mentioned, and there's the other mechanism, which is parties do employ people to do the social media work.
Uh-huh.
And they're vicious, meaning that whenever they can, it happens on Twitter a lot. Actually, I reposted a tweet from someone that went deep into the rabbit hole and outed somebody, like found out his identity and the mechanisms behind. So what these people do, they go and they flag posts. So they do post for the party that they pay them. So this is the army of trolls, right? So this is real. Okay, so they flag posts, and then so then you can say that the administration of these platforms is thin and they cannot address all the flag posts in a proper way. But once they're flagged, they kind of automatically go in quarantine, and if nobody says anything, then if you don't appeal, let's say, which I did, if you don't appeal, it's just gonna stay like that.
All right.
But these people are paid. We know. elections. I mean, we have history, like Analytica in England. We know how Facebook and these platforms have been involved in manipulating elections. This is not conspiracy theory. This is fact, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. That is definitely happening.
Targeted ads and trolls and all that stuff. Anyway, so that's my peer-to-peer approach to politics. So decentralize these mechanisms of opinion shaping.